Hello! In this chapter, I'm going to give you an introduction to Unreal. I'm assuming that you're a beginner or maybe you never used Unreal before, so I'm just gonna start from scratch, and hopefully in a very short amount of time, you're gonna be able to do everything you need to do to follow this tutorial. So this is by no means a comprehensive tutorial, right? Like you're gonna have to look for other tutorials to get in depth. But here I want to show you just the necessary elements to follow this tutorial. So for the tutorial, I actually used Unreal 4, but at this moment Unreal 5 is available. So I'm gonna show you how to set that up and how to use that. So from Unreal 3 to Unreal 4, it was a big leap. It was a different engine pretty much. But from Unreal 4 to Unreal 5, it's more like an update. So the UI is going to be a little bit different, but the engine is pretty much the same. So you should have no problem following either one. Like the differences are minimal. And at this time, I would only recommend using Unreal 4 if you're developing for VR. This is in 2022 because Unreal 5 is not ready for VR. So if you are on a higher end computer, you can use Unreal 5 because lighting is more powerful there. There is a real-time lighting system called Lumen that looks amazing. But anyway, if your computer can handle Unreal 5, I would say go for that. But if you're still on Unreal 4, no problem at all. So the first thing, you just have to install the engine. So I have two versions installed here. And to create a new project, you click on Launch, and you can choose the version here. So I'm going to launch on Unreal 5. And then we get to this screen here where you can choose the template that you want to start with. For our purpose, let's go to games, and here you can choose first person, third person, or VR. I would say to choose one of these three. I'm going to choose first person, but the third person is just as good, and actually helps to have a character to see the scale. So that one is just as good, but I'll choose first person because that's the one I used for the Spanish Town. And then here in the options, you can use blueprint, quality preset maximum. You can choose starter content or not. To keep things clean, I usually don't use this. But if you're a beginner, I would recommend to have this because it has a few elements that you can use. Like nothing too crazy, but you can take some elements from there. And ray tracing, you can enable this if you have a graphics card that supports ray tracing. So the project location is very important because you're gonna need to go there a few times. So make sure it's in a good folder. And I have all my work stuff in the Z drive, and I highly recommend you to also do that because it just makes it easier to move projects from one computer to another, or to share a project with someone else if everyone is on the same drive. So there's another video that shows you how to do this, and then you can name your project. So I named my Spanish Town, but here I'm just gonna name an example, and let's hit create. So now it's gonna take some time to create the project and compile the shaders. So let's go for a walk, grab some coffee, and then come back when it's done. Okay, so here we are in Unreal 5. If you are in Unreal 4, it's pretty much the same. Like things are gonna be in a different place maybe, but they all have pretty much the same names, and the UI is very similar. I'm having a problem with the UI scaling here because I had to change the resolution of this monitor. So yeah, it looks it's a little funky. I couldn't figure out how to scale this down. But anyways, to make sure that everything is working fine, let's click on play. If you click on play here, you should be able to play in the viewport. So then you just move like any shooter game. So press escape and you should go back to the editor. So to navigate, you hold the right mouse button, and then you can use WSD, ASD, like you would in a FPS game. To control the speed of the camera, you just roll the mouse wheel as you move. So if you move down, you can make the camera slower, and if you move the wheel faster, you can make the camera much faster. So just find a comfortable position and get familiar flying around, and you can move the camera just by right click and then moving the mouse. That's how you move the camera. Next, let's move some objects. So if you click on any of these objects, you see an outline, and you get this gizmo here, and you can use this to move things up or down. So Control Z, so you can move on this axis, or if you click on the middle of the axis, you can move in that axis only. Next, we have rotate, and you can change the gizmo by hitting spacebar, by clicking here, or the method I use is WER on the keyboard. So WER. E is rotate, and R is scale. Okay, so far so good. With these operations, you can already build a level. Next, let's look at these numbers here. These numbers are the grid snapping, and right now it's way too low. It's in 10 centimeters, so it doesn't even look like it's snapping much. So if you change this to 100, that means that it's gonna snap at 1 meter intervals. And when you're building the level, you want to use the grid as much as possible. It's gonna save you a lot of time. It's gonna make building things much easier. And the same is valid for the other two. So this one controls rotation, and I like to leave it at 15 degrees. I think this kind of makes more sense than 10 degrees. And the next one is for scaling. And scaling, I usually stay either on 0.25 or 0.125. So that's the scaling in Snap. So you see like it's still scaling the piece on the grid. Like each step is still on the grid. And if we turn this off, if we click there, like now we don't have any snaps. And it's a free form. So same for the other ones. So if you turn that off, like now you have no snaps anymore. The next thing here to know is the coordinate system. So you see this is rotated, but the pivot's still facing the world position. And the place you change this is here. If you click here, now you are in local mode. So this is great when you work on angled pieces. Next, let's duplicate. Duplicate's very easy. This is a command you're gonna use all the time. You just hold Alt and you drag. So now we duplicated that box, and we can start building already just with that box. So just take some time to get a feel for this if you never used Unreal before, and change the grid sizes and just play around. and you can play at any time. If you hit play, you can play there. And it's essential to play all the time, because then you can check the scale. So you see, like when I'm working on this, I have no reference of scale. Like it looks huge, but then when you actually play, it's very small. So this is essential to making sure you have the right scale. So next, let's take a look at the UI real quick. So here on the left is where you're gonna find the different actors that you can place in the level. So if you go to lights, that's where you can drag and drop different lights. The next one is shapes. For the tutorial, I'm not gonna use these shapes, but they can be useful sometimes for some quick iterations. I don't like using them so much because the pivot's in the center. I prefer when it's like this in the corner. It just makes it easier to work. Like when it's in the center and you scale, like it gets harder to work with it. And so on and on. Like, so the other one of note here is the geometry. So they have shapes and geometry, and it's kind of similar, but the difference is these shapes here, they're just solids. You can just scale and rotate them. But here in geometry, you can actually build stuff. So these are called brushes. And I'm not going to use them in the tutorial. I just want to show you that they exist. And they can be very useful for blocking out levels too. But that's beyond the scope of this tutorial. If you want to learn how to use them, you can look for specific tutorials. And there is another place where you get modeling tools. If you click here on select mode, you can go to modeling. So this is available in Unreal 5, and I believe in the latest version of Unreal 4, you might have to enable in the settings. But these are a complete suite of modeling tools. They are a little funky to use. I'm not necessarily a pro at them. I tried to use them before, and I think they're very flexible. There's a lot of stuff you can do with them, but I still prefer to use Maya for these kind of things. But I just want to let you know, if you don't want to use Maya or Blender, you can even use this. I'm not sure if right now they are production ready. There might be some bugs here and there, but this is a solution if you don't want to model in an exterior program. The next panel here is the content browser. So this is pretty straightforward. Like all these pieces here, they are here somewhere. So when you click on an actor, like this is a static mesh, and you look here on the right, you got the transform here information. So this is the placement, the coordinates that it has on the map. So you can input numbers here. And if you scroll down here to static mesh, you see that this is the name of the mesh. So SM cube. And if you click on this icon, it browses to where that cube is saved. So this is very handy. You're gonna use this all the time. And conversely, you can do the same for material. Okay, so far so good. The last panel you're gonna look is the outliner, which is basically just a list of all the objects in the scene. So this is great if you, for example, you want to go to the directional light, right? You can find it here. And the next panel here is the properties. So this one becomes available when you select an object, and it will be context based depending on the object. So for example, if I drop a light, I get light settings. So this is where you can control the intensity, like color, all those properties here. And conversely, if you go to solid, you got all those options here too. But for now, you can ignore all these settings here. If you're just getting started, there is nothing here that you need to worry about, except this here, which is the materials, static mesh, and the transform. That's all you need to know for now. And I think that's pretty much it. This is just the most basics of the basics, you know, like you can look for Unreal tutorials out there, but to follow this tutorial so far, you don't need much. You only need to know how to move stuff, scale, because that's the workflow we're gonna use to build the environment.